Greetings and gratitude to all light forms and life workers who have found this 31 day of card magic, day number 12. Today we will be discussing lost media magic. So whatever thing you are interested in, whatever topic of media that you are interested in, there is at least one semi-popular or even more obscure lost media. These are things that we don't have in their entirety. Oftentimes there's a way that they are modified so they can still be consumed, but they do not have all of their authenticity. They do not have all of the author's original intent this is why it's considered lost media. Some of the more famous ones that we know about being the first 2 seasons of the British show Doctor Who, some of the original Walt Disney Oswald the Lucky Rabbit short cartoons, and many episodes of The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. These are some of the more famous pieces of lost media that a lot of people tend to talk about. But it goes a lot deeper than that. It is something I find very interesting here on YouTube, but I haven't seen any tarot readers or tarot users really diving deep into the idea of lost media. I have 2 decks to talk about today. They're both from the 1400s. So like many decks from the 14, 15, and 1600s, and even into the 17 and 1800s, we don't have them in their entirety. Oftentimes some of the cards, usually Death and the Devil and Temperance, are some of the ones that are more likely to be missing from these older decks. But some of the other cards as well are generally known to be lost. So what is widely considered the grandfather or grandmother of tarot in its modern capacity is the Viscontis. So there's multiple Visconti decks. This is the Sofrisa, and Tarocchini was the original term. So this deck, as I will read to you, this is a complete 78 deck including full color reproductions of the 74 mid-15th century Visconti Sofrisa Tarocchini cards, plus 4 cards recreated to replace the missing cards from the original pack. 35 of the original cards are archived in the Morgan Library and Museum in New York. The remaining intact cards are located in Italy at the Accademia Carana and the Casa Colani. So this is a deck. It's very popular and has been for many years. When it was originally commissioned, it was commissioned by the Royal Visconti family to make just one handmade, hand-painted, gold detailed deck for the family for game playing. So 4 of the original cards are missing. We don't know what they are. We have some references of what they might look like from eyewitnesses' journals, but there's not a lot of that. But it is mostly done by the interpretation of the artist that was commissioned. This artist was commissioned based on their similarity to the existing art style of these cards that have been in museums for hundreds of years. The reason why I like using this deck, one is it's very good, I find, to use decks that have been studied for hundreds of years. There's been hundreds of years of people studying the meanings of symbolism and the artistic intent of these cards. So because they come from the mid-14th century, the preservation was not complete. So those 4 cards have slipped through the cracks. We don't know what they are. And this means this deck is incomplete and is considered lost media, because we don't know what the full deck looks like. But because we have over 70 cards, 74 to be exact, we can really understand the theme, the fluidity, the art design choices, the different choices the artists originally make. So here's one of the original cards with the decay of... I like using these because these are reproductions, so any decay or imperfection of the cards can be added to the magic, be added to the reading. When something is lost, any form of lost media, it gives it extra sense of magic. Because we don't fully understand, we don't fully know, it leaves it up to the interpretation. We, as humans, want to recreate things that are lost. So this artist came up with 4 cards, but these 4 cards are not exact. They're not perfect representation of what the artist wanted. They are at most inspired by the artist, but they're not authentic to the original cards. And some people don't notice when they're using these cards which are the 4 ones that are different. I can usually tell based on the energy of the cards. It's just a very different frequency from an image that is probably 100 years old to one that is close to 600 years old. So that's the Visconti. There's multiple Visconti decks, and this is the one that is in the most level of complete out of any of the decks from this time period, and this is widely considered the earliest deck that we have, based on how complete it was. So it seems like there was a deliberate effort to keep this deck, to have a lot of the energies of the deck saved and shared for future generations. Not every deck was this lucky. Very few of them have over 70 cards. Most of them have less than 20 cards remaining, which is the case of the next deck we will talk about, which is the Extensi Tarot. I will read from here. Originally made by Gerardo Bertini, but the rest of the cards, so only 14 of these cards remained, and the rest of the cards were done with the artwork of Joe Dworkin. One of the most mysterious tarots of the past, unearthed after more than 5 centuries. This deck is the first time completed with rich miniatures inspired by Renaissance astrology. So there is a lot of astrology that was studied and put into these cards from the Renaissance. So they're gold flaked. This is historically accurate. Most likely these cards would have had gold access and accenting on each one, because these were high-end luxury items made for one family. So here's some of the few names of this deck. The Golden Tarot, the Renaissance, the Extensi Tarot are a few of the names. Has a beautiful backing of the card. So these are not recreations, because we only have the 14 cards. These are updates to the existing 14 and adding the rest of the cards. So based on what people remember seeing, any reports of these cards, any depictions of them in diaries, or any manuscripts that we have of anyone who interacted with these cards, these are used for reference. But there is also just study of what motifs were popular during this time and what energies were common. But I find this deck, unlike the Visconti, the symbolism is very different from what we use now. With the Visconti, all of the major arcana really fit in with the Rider-Waite, with the more modern types of decks that are coming out in 2020 and in the future. Where I find this deck, because so many of it is lost, is one of the very few examples I have found of something I would consider half classical, meaning it is inspired by the deck that was released in the 1490s, but because we don't have all of the cards from this deck, it is very much New Age. The artists put their own new thoughts, their own level of intellect into this, based on the research that they did to make it as accurate as possible. But because it's not complete, it is a New Age deck. It is not a complete historical deck. And very few of them actually are, but like the Visconti is closer to completed, having 70 cards. But it can still be used, and I find there's a lot of power in using decks that are partially lost. And that are considered lost media because we don't know what every card would actually look like based on the original intent, but they all feel cohesive. This deck is a lot harder to tell what the original 14 compared to the rest of the cards are, which really gives it a very beautiful reading and a lot of magic. But if you want to take your magic to the next level, research which ones are real and which ones are artistic licenses of the cards, and do research. See where these cards are they're using in museums. Find out who owned them. See if there are any books. The more research you do, talk about theories. There's other people who theorize what the cards would look like. Theorize what they would look like different to the ones that were made by these artists that you hold. So whether or not you want to make your own deck based off of these lost decks as an inspiration, which is very powerful, or you do what I do, is work with recreations of what we think they might look like, what we think it might be. It really doesn't matter either way, because you spending time with something that is lost is actually giving it energy, giving energy to the artist. Oftentimes people don't want things that are incomplete. They don't want things that are missing pieces to them because they feel like they themselves will miss part of it. This is not true. These things are lost to time. Maybe they will resurface, maybe they won't. But the fact that we have what we have can still be used, can still be honored, and still hold the magic frequency that they had over 600 years ago. So I hope this can answer to you. If you are looking to learn more about lost media in the tarot world, there's many lost tarot decks that are a lot more lost than these two. These are the ones that are mostly lost, or partially lost, but are still being used as recreation. So, to all the fans of lost media and to all the fans of magical cards, thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next broadcast.